Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good evening, this is GB News with me, Bev Turner, standing in for Neil Oliver. Similar hair, different accent. Coming up on the show tonight, we'll hear from a leading doctor and a senior figure in the hospitality industry about how the world has changed for the better and the worse in the last couple of years. I'll speak to the wife of a man with motor neurone disease to discuss how the cost of living crisis and rising energy bills are affecting them. Plus, with summer well and truly on the way, plus it's a Saturday night, I'm going to be getting some tips on what makes the perfect summer cocktail. Oh, I can see my guests going, yes! All of that and them and more between now and 8 o'clock. But first, here's the latest news headlines brought to you this evening by Ray Addison.
Thanks, Bev. Here's the latest from the GB Newsroom. Labour is calling on Boris Johnson to urgently explain his meetings with Sue Gray to discuss the so-called Partygate report into COVID rule-breaking. It's understood that they met at least once while the report was being drafted. Labour's deputy leader, Angela Rayner, says people deserve to know the truth. Former Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt told GB News he wouldn't have introduced lockdowns in the first place.
Would I have done things differently during the pandemic if I had been Prime Minister and won that contest in 2019? For sure. Would I have made some of the mistakes that Boris made? I don't think I would have because of my experience as Health Secretary, but I would have made different mistakes. I think it's impossible to go through something as extreme as a pandemic and get everything right.
The Foreign Secretary is meeting with a top Democrat later over government plans to scrap parts of the Northern Ireland Protocol. The International Trade Secretary, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, has already met a Democrat called Richard Neal to discuss UK-US trade. It follows a warning from the US House Speaker that Congress won't support a free trade deal with the UK if it discards the post-Brexit agreement. New legislation is expected in early June. Sir Ian Duncan-Smith has called for benefits to be boosted in line with inflation to protect the public from mounting living costs. He says the use of rebates and discretionary funds represent a step in the wrong direction for tackling poverty. The government is already handing out £150 council tax rebates for many homes and will take £200 off energy bills from October. The former Conservative leader told GB News the government has the budget to boost benefits.
Need to lower taxes and actually assist those on benefits, and it won't lead to extra debt. The government has the headroom. 2 years running, they've outperformed their own forecasts by 91 and 90 billion respectively, nearly 200 billion, better than they were expected to be 2 years ago. So this is money that can be used for this purpose.
Unions are warning of potentially the biggest rail strike in modern history. 40,000 staff from Network Rail and 15 train companies are voting on action over pay. It could create serious challenges in keeping goods moving and supermarket shelves stocked. Supply chain expert Richard Bartlett told GB News it will be bad for the consumer.
Supply chain for the consumer is everything. The whole chain is working. If that chain's not working, or there's a delay, or there's extra costs, there's delays at ports, there's delays everywhere else, has a huge effect, because these are normally ordered within a period of time. They're not ordered tomorrow for next week. They're ordered in advance. And if that advance rule of 3 months starts to slow down, it has a huge effect. And we're certainly seeing that. We're certainly seeing price increases. There's no question about that.
3 people have been taken to hospital after a stand collapsed during a Trooping the Colour rehearsal in London this morning. 2 others were treated by paramedics and discharged at the scene in Horse Guards Road. Witnesses say crowds were evacuated by the emergency services and that the ceremony was cut short. Russia has claimed victory in the battle for Mariopol after Ukrainian soldiers in the final stronghold surrendered. It's now launched a major offensive in Luhansk, where shelling continues as Russian forces press for control of Ukraine's Donbas region. Meanwhile, the Kremlin has declared a travel ban on 963 Americans, including President Joe Biden, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and CIA Chief William Burns. Boris Johnson has congratulated Labour's Anthony Albanese on his election as Prime Minister of Australia. Outgoing PM Scott Morrison has conceded defeat despite millions of votes yet to be counted. He's also announced that he'll step down as leader of the Liberal Party after losing ground to environment and climate-focused parties like the Greens and Independents. Mr Albanese says his goal is to unite the country.
Australian people have voted for change. I am humbled by this victory, and I'm honoured to be given the opportunity to serve as the 31st Prime Minister of Australia. My Labor team will work every day to bring Australians together, and I will lead a government worthy of the people of Australia.
On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now let's get back to Neil Oliver live with Bev Turner.
Now, I hope you don't mind if I just take the next few minutes to reflect on something that has been bugging me recently. Because I don't know about you, but it feels like we're currently in a sort of limbo, treading water between the old world and the new. We all want to leave COVID lockdowns in the past, don't we? But there are still too many reminders to completely let ourselves off the hook. As the anger, fear, or just confusion of our bizarrely restricted living ebbs away, I keep noticing social changes that have been made permanent under the cloak of COVID. And nobody is really talking about them. Most centre around tech. Of course, technology was already slowly seeping inexorably into every crevice of our existence. Mobile phones were an extra limb for most of us anyway before March 2020. But upending our lives under the guise of infection control has allowed private businesses and government authorities to accelerate monumental changes, which we, in our newly compliant or just exhausted state, have apparently accepted without question. I asked on Twitter today for your examples, and you didn't disappoint, of course. My own personal bugbear, echoed by many of you, ordering food in a restaurant on an app. Now, remember, this was brought in to minimise human contact at a time when MPs were telling healthy people to act as though they were ill. Temporarily, it might have seemed like a harmless, sensible measure, but it was never going to go away. Why would the shareholders of a restaurant chain opt to pay a human being an annual wage when they can pay an app developer a one-off fee and sit back to watch the profits increase. So now, in order to eat in some places, and there will be more, you need a phone with decent battery power, Wi-Fi good enough to upload the required app. You must give away your personal details to God knows who, select your meal without asking a waiter what's good that day, or requesting anything which deviates from the menu. And if the wrong dish arrives, it is your fault, the paying customer. Fat fingers and a typo will be no excuse. You're basically working for the company, but without any reduction in the price of your food. Teenagers, naturally self-conscious and shy in such settings, love this impersonal system. And maybe they'll never need to develop social skills when they're living in a metaverse, visiting waterfalls in their own head, and having virtual sex with a celebrity of their choice. But there are and will be thousands of elderly people locked out of the system when all they want is a cheese toastie, a pot of tea, and a chat with a waitress. I keep coming back to Matt Hancock's speech on the Fourth Industrial Revolution in 2017, when he said, with a frisson of arousal, "If you don't much like change, I'm afraid I don't have so much good news." Well, I guess this means, sorry, Grandma, no more eating out for you. Many of you are frustrated that reduced timetables on trains and buses became permanent in your area. Couple these with cancellations due to a shocking lack of drivers, plus some countries still insisting on non-scientific vaccine passports, and it's clear that the movement of people is simply much less free than before. One major problem is that being beholden to systems connected to apps has depressingly eroded spontaneity, not only in hospitality, where online booking is a must, but also when trying to access sports facilities to, ironically, stay healthy. Under infection minimising measures, swimming pools introduced a booking system entirely unfit for purpose, unless you know you will fancy doing 1,500 metres front crawl in 3 weeks' time. At my local council-run pool, members paying a set monthly fee selfishly book up all the lanes but don't show up. So busy working parents, like me, who might glance at our watches and realise we've got time for exercise that day, well, tough. Computer says no. The pool itself is actually empty, but the app doesn't care about that. I can try and ring the reception, but the voice recording isn't going to tell me whether a lane is free. This rigid inflexibility may benefit some retired swimmers booking ahead who enjoy having a lane to themselves. But there will be no swimming pools for their grandchildren's generation. Their existence is simply not sustainable when the pool is empty. I felt less alone in my exasperation today at this increasingly dehumanised world when I heard that one woman has set up a petition. 69-year-old Pat McCarthy quickly gained more than 100,000 signatures, calling for Tesco to stop replacing people with machines. But according to the general manager at the company which produces self-service tills, they free up the cashier from the drudgery of having to scan and let the technology do the work for you. But hang on a minute, as a customer, I'm now doing the drudgery of scanning at those useless machines, no longer chatting convivially to the person at the till about the price of bread, but arguing with some poor soul in her lanyard when there's an unexpected item in the bagging area. Care homes are still rationing visits to loved ones, even though it is roundly accepted that residents benefit from rewarding, loving interactions. Why? Infection control? Or ambivalent staff who like having fewer guests to manage? One of you told me you are no longer allowed to visit your local RSPCA animal shelter. Why? And what of the NHS? A place full of people walking around with masks on their chins, wanting still to appear to be doing the right thing, but also preferring to smile and chat freely with patients and colleagues. Stickers on random doors still urge social distancing. I've taken to peeling them off when no one is looking. Hand sanitisers still sit in shop doorways. That's the shops that haven't closed down, of course. Even though we have known for almost 2 years that COVID wasn't transmitted through surface contact. And it was the misunderstanding, the idea that cash might be a fomite passing on the virus, which caused such terror at the sight of a fistful of coins and rendered so many establishments cash-free. So now, Unless we make a special effort, there are no more tips for hairdressers, no spare change for the homeless, no way of making a transaction without a digital paper trail, but a very happy HMRC who can sleep easy knowing you are less likely to pay your builder in cash. But it's not all bad. Online parents' evenings are receiving a unanimous thumbs up. No more sitting on tiny chairs and awkward goodbyes. Take it from me, parents' evenings are immeasurably better when you have a gin and tonic just out of shot. And we are finally seeing the flexible working measures that some mothers have been politely requesting for decades. No more obsession with being in the office as long as you get your work done. I'm not a Luddite. Change can be good. So let's have honest conversations about what transformations we are happy to live with and complain loudly about the ones we are not. Let's be conscious of the enslavement by tech, the normalising of barriers to social contact and communication, the rigidity of apps against the messy, flawed and impulsive nature of humanity. Let's start by taking down those stupid Perspex screens, the perfect metaphor for the invisible barriers keeping us on an uncertain footing. I'd rather live in a future of spontaneous freedom with people rather than Wi-Fi at the centre than planned slavery worshipping a digital god. Right, I need a glass of water after that. OK, all of that is my opinion, of course. You're free to disagree. Keep your tweets and emails coming in through the show. You can email us gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet us at gbnews, and I'll read out as many of your comments as we can get to a little later on in the show. Now, I am joined this evening by the columnist and commentator Andre Walker and the former Liberal Democrat MP Lembit Opik. Now, guys, I could see you nodding. It was lovely. It was like having two little cheerleaders at the side there.
like the Churchill dog.
For keeping me going there. It's a long read.
Yeah.
Listen, right, Lembit, what resonated with you from that?
The fact that we never get our freedom back. Always a justification, like you said, Beth, because it's all for our own good. Why don't we just give everybody in the state every piece of information about us? There's a film called Anon, and it's, I won't go into the details because it's a complicated film, but it's about a situation where they can actually see everything you've done. And then if there's a crime, they can find out who did it and so on. That's great if the state is completely blameless, completely beyond any corruption. I know, as a former MP, that's not true. I exposed murders at Deep Army Barracks, a complicated case, and I was thwarted at every point by the state in proving that.
And of course, the state on one given day might feel like a safe place, but different governments come in and we've already given up our freedoms, right?
That's right. And the fact is, as soon as you depend on your phone, everything that you do is an IP code. Everything you do can be traced. Now, once again, it would be great if we had saints running the country, but for that we need to wait for the second coming.
Andre, what about the things I was saying there did you relate to? And what is the good as well? Because we've got a lot of change is not bad. I don't want to sound like a Luddite. You know, change isn't always bad, but we're not really, we've subconsciously just accepted so many of these things.
Well, I've got a brilliant example actually from yesterday. I ended up coming into contact with an awful airline company called Fly One, right? And effectively what they did was, and here's the advantage and the disadvantage. The advantage is the online check-in on your phone. The advantage is that you can book things on your phone and all that, and it's all easy. You don't have to go down to your local travel agents. The problem is, if there's an issue, nobody is responsible. There is no human. It's a robot on the other end. And I end up in the unbelievable position. A friend of mine was flying to a different location where he had the receipts for everything he paid, but the staff demanded he paid again because they couldn't find it on the computer, and literally menaced and threatened this guy and said, look, you've got to pay. So, of course, the point is, if you can have your receipt, you can do your booking, but if they personally don't want to take any responsibility, you're done. I'll tell you something, by the way, about restaurants. Let's name and shame somebody. Who was it? Nando's on Northcote Road in Clapham Junction.
This is getting personal.
Clapham's not my usual...
So now you've already named two brands that I have to just explain, and I'm sure Fly One and Nando's would have a different version of events, but do carry on.
No, well, I'm sure they might do. They might do. But don't
I've got a brand for you.
Don't worry, Fly One are based in Moldova. They're not watching. But Nando's might be.
The lawyer might be.
But in fairness to Nando's, this is their policy in this particular branch. You have to use that QR code thing.
Yeah.
No, literally, the member of staff is stood there. The till is there, and they go, you have to use the QR code. Do you know what I did? I just walked out. I thought, I can't be bothered with them.
Interesting. I flew with Turkish Airlines recently. The reason I love them is because they're still human.
Are they?
Yeah, you go in to go to a lounge, probably the best lounge in the world is in the Istanbul airport, and they treat you like a human. They don't look at your phone. Yeah. They look at you. Yeah. And they say, well, if you want a kebab, it's in that corner. If you want a pizza, that there. If you want to sleep, it's over there. And then I'm obsessed with aviation. But the best thing about it is they're obsessed with humanity. Exactly the opposite of your experience.
Yeah.
What I liked about your monologue is, let's bring the humanity in, the reasonableness. The only reason our society works at all is because basically most people are good. If you drop £20, most people will run up and say, just drop this. And what we're now in a situation of cynicism.
How generational is it, though, Andre? Because you see, I've got an 18-year-old, and that generation particularly, they've spent 2 years pretty much sat in their rooms with their screens, and it's become so normal to them now that like this is life,
I think that most people who watched your opening monologue, who are not mums of teenagers, would have been extremely concerned and disturbed by what you've said, because it's clearly... And by the way, I thought you were fantastic.
Oh, well, I did feel I had to apologise to my guests for not being Neil Oliver tonight when they arrived and they went, oh, you're not Neil Oliver. I'm so sorry. I'm the super sub. I'm on the bench.
Neil's actually arguing at this very point in Bath today, I think. Exactly the point
I was there this morning. I was with him this morning.
But the great thing is the fact that you're talking about personal experience. Look, I didn't... Oh, God, this is embarrassing. I didn't know about the swimming pool. Does that surprise you? But actually, these things, there's so many examples of them. I heard an example once of when somebody was saying when the Olympics were coming to London, they would go, oh, look, we don't need to put on any bus services because the buses around Stratford are all empty. They said, no, because there's 2 doors, nobody puts their Oyster card on, therefore the buses are packed. But TfL doesn't know that because the system... And so, had it not been for human beings telling them, they would have put no extra buses on during the Olympics. It's that data that... And, I mean, I could talk all day about it. I won't. But I mean, I had a problem with a video-making website. I'm not going to... I mean, everyone will know which
Don't name them as well. That's the hat trick on the first night.
We'll just go...
You're on 2 libels already.
But what was amazing was that I got into trouble for fraudulent traffic. And what had happened very simply was I joined... this video showing website for the first time, but I was known on other social media, and suddenly I got lots of views in a short period, and their security systems kicked in. I will tell you, trying to persuade them that this was not fraudulent, and that because you can't speak to a human, they don't know what you're talking about. Literally, if the algorithm tells you that something's gone wrong, they will believe the algorithm, even in the face of all evidence to the contrary.
Use the phrase "computer says no." I say humanity says yes. And the danger is we're at a tipping point now where it doesn't matter how you feel because it's all about the numbers.
We are at a tipping point. That was why I wanted to talk about it, because I think and everybody you speak to has an example. Do let us know, won't you, on Twitter, @GBNews, the examples that you've experienced as well and whether you're happy with them or not. OK, now, after the break, we're going to be getting a bit more on how the world has changed for the better and the worse from 2 people from different industries which have both been badly affected in the past 2 years. Don't go anywhere. See you in a couple of minutes.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, welcome back. Now, I asked you to tell me what your thoughts were about how the world has changed since the COVID lockdown in 2020, and lots of you have been in touch. Thank you very much. Eddie has said, I go to restaurants I've never experienced anywhere that you have to order by app. Well, a lot of the big chains do it, I guess because it is a profit-making thing, and more will do it, Eddie, sadly. Brenda has said, I've long believed that the ongoing fear pandemic is about control, because a lot of these are about control, aren't they? They're about policing us, surveilling us, always knowing where we are on our phones and our apps. And Alan McNelly has said via email, I totally agree, apps are a pain. Not being able to buy a meal without an app is madness. I prefer to pay for what I want in cash, and that way I know what I can afford. Well, let's hope we have cash for longer. And Neil Hughes via email saying, Neil Oliver, you look so much better without a beard.
Hear, hear.
Brilliant.
Now, I did start the show by talking about how the world has changed, and there were obviously a lot of people in healthcare on the front line during the pandemic, and those who are involved with hospitality were affected as much as anyone. So I'm joined now by Dr. Lawrence Gurlis from Same Day Doctor and Michael Kill, who is the CEO of the Nighttime Industries Association. Good evening, gentlemen. If I can come to you first, Doctor, a lot of people who got in touch with me today to talk about how things have changed quite like GP appointments on the phone at their convenience. What percentage of appointments do you think we should aim to have like that, and what percentage should be in person?
I think probably around 50-50 is an answer to your question. I personally dislike remote consultations. I like to see how a patient walks in, how they talk, and you can get a much better picture face-to-face. But in NHS general practice, a lot of the work is administrative, and I'm in touch with a lot of GPs who tell me that they can do a lot of the certificate writing, letters of referral, letters for the housing, without a face-to-face consultation. So properly used, and that's the important thing, properly used, remote consultations by video or phone or email can save the health service and the patients and the doctors a lot of time. The trouble is some doctors during the pandemic didn't use it properly, and then the government intervened and said you must offer face-to-face if patients want it, which is in itself ridiculous that for the government to say that. So let's get to a situation where it's about half and half, and hopefully we'll be able to give a better service to the patients than some of them are getting at the moment.
Do you think that patients should always have the choice to decide whether they want to come in and be seen, or whether they are told, well, what you just need a repeat prescription, we can do that over the phone? Do you think it should be up to the doctor or the patient?
Look, I think if patients have the choice but it's inappropriate, that's not going to work. Now, if you're elderly, you're not very computer literate, fine. Of course, you can choose to come in. But some people really don't need to have a face-to-face consultation with a doctor. And so I do think a form of triage when someone, it doesn't have to be a dragon receptionist, someone has the responsibility for deciding which patients need to have face-to-face. And that's done efficiently and kindly and without people having to wait on the telephone for 30 minutes at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I don't think it should be patient choice. I think it should be a joint decision with priority, because my view of the health service is I want to get people who are ill the best treatment. And unfortunately, a lot of people use the health service because it's free at the point of use in a very inappropriate way. And I can give you examples of that if you want. I saw a doctor on social media today saying, Friday afternoon, this is what happens. About 2:30, he gets lots of calls saying, oh, I just want to make sure I'm okay for the weekend. Then about 4:30, you get lots of calls saying, I've just picked my son, daughter up from school and they don't look right. And you see, it's a lot of just in case, which we're never going to move to a fee-paying system or insurance system in this country, although we probably should, but it's not going to happen. We need to look at European examples. But people really overuse the health service and use it inappropriately. So I think remote consultations are a good way of focusing on the people who really need the treatment.
I would probably say that we've become also rather more hypochondriac in the last couple of years, so that using the NHS as a just in case will only get worse. Michael, if I can come to you, few industries have had such as tough a time as the nighttime industries in the last couple of years. How are things from your point of view? I don't know whether you heard what I was saying at the beginning of the show, but it feels like we're in this really strange limbo at the moment as individuals and also as industries, that we've got one foot in the past, but we're all looking to the future, but it still feels like there's some massive changes. How do you see it?
Well, I think everyone has been suffering from a lack of confidence with the sector and uncertainty, which we've suffered for 2.5 years. We're finally getting some momentum. We've had to change some of the models in terms of practice. It's really concerning to hear the experiences with regard to the QR codes, because as you can appreciate, we build our industry on service and service standards, so it's vitally important. But as you can understand, coming out of just over 2.5 years, coming out of a crisis, with one foot in the crisis, still trying to manage our way out with debt, etc., but also facing a crisis at the other end in terms of overseas and cost inflation. As you can understand, costs have gone up by about 26% overall pre-COVID, but also consumers, people who come to our venues and our spaces, have got less disposable income, and that's starting to ramp up. We're going to see the next 3 to 6 months being very, very difficult as inflation becomes, quite unbearable.
Happened, I think, Michael, as well, whilst we were all locked down, people got used to eating at home, drinking at home, and now we're going back into the world, and the weather is getting nice, the evenings are getting lighter. We have high expectations, actually, of how we're going to spend our money now, and I keep hearing, and certainly anecdotally I'm finding myself, the customer service in this country at the moment is appalling. Why is that?
Well, we've got a lot of challenges. One of the challenges that we have is a big staffing issue. We're having a real struggle bringing people in from abroad, where we'd normally have a huge array.
Where have they all gone? Where are they? Because I totally agree. I got a train yesterday and the announcement said we haven't got the train to Leicester because we haven't got a driver. It's like management have just given up.
Well, it's exactly that. Many people went back to their own countries during the pandemic, and we are suffering with a real challenge around low-income, low-skilled workers coming across from different countries. I spoke to my counterpart from Australia, who said that, normally we're awash with POMs, as he highlighted it, but, British coming across and working in Australia and similar, we're used to going to places like Camden and talking to, bar staff from Australia, New Zealand, all around the world, and we haven't got that at the moment, hence the pressures and possibly some of the reasons why we're using some technology to enhance or create some efficiencies to ensure that we can serve people. It's a real crisis at the moment that is hugely challenging for people. But as you can understand, with all of this, we're trying to recoup, move forward, but we're facing another crisis with cost inflation, which is a real tough one to get over, both from a consumer perspective and a business perspective.
Dr. Gurlis, if I can ask you, is there a generational, there clearly is a generational aspect at play here. Do you worry about some of your more elderly patients who will find these tech barriers in their place, whether they want to go and access some medical services, or even just go to the restaurant or jump on a train if they haven't got the latest app? They can find themselves very isolated.
Yeah, no, without a doubt, it does discriminate against people who don't have the latest smartphone or don't have an iPad or computer at home. And of course, the younger people, as you said, actually prefer. I get people who don't want to come in for a face-to-face consultation. They really, really want to have a remote consultation because they've got busy lives they don't want to travel to see a doctor, but they may not be the people that it's appropriate for. So no, you're absolutely right. I think the elderly, disabled are being discriminated against in the tech revolution, and we've just got to make allowances for that.
Let's try and come up with some solutions here, rather than us all just having a big moan on a Saturday night. As the consumer, what would you advise people who are watching this to do? And do we just have to lower expectations in the short term when we go out and expect that our food might be a little slow, the waitress might be a while getting our drinks? How do we get through this?
I think the interesting part is, and you quite rightly said, for the last 2.5 years, we've set people up to be able to do everything that they did outside of their home at home. They can order food, they can shop, they can have entertainment, they can use virtual screening to talk to friends, family, etc. So what we're now doing is reversing that, interestingly enough. And the challenge that we have is we need feedback. We need more than anything now, because consumers, particularly some of the youngsters that enjoy a night out probably more frequently than others, we need that feedback. We need to understand what they want to see and how they want to see things moving forward, what's going to make them safe. We've seen things like the disparity in the return in different age groups have different responsibilities because of the health risks. So we are still charged with trying to build confidence in certain age brackets to ensure that they're able to come out and enjoy culture, whether it be a band, a night out, an electronic music DJ, etc. So there's still a lot of work being done recovery-wise, where, as you quite rightly said, you've still got your foot in this debt management position with cost inflation starting to build up in front of you and staff challenges for us. But I think the key thing here is support the businesses locally and feedback. Let them know they will adapt, they will change, they want to do the best, they realise how important the customers are. So don't lose sight of that. And I'm pretty sure most people will do their best to make it an efficient and comfortable and service-orientated environment for them to return to.
And what does the government need to do for you, Michael? I mean, I'm guessing that the VAT is also pretty crushing at the moment.
VAT is one solution that I think would make a big difference. As you can understand with everything, I think what we've got to start looking at now is, because we're looking at a 26% increase in cost, we've got to look at ways outside of the financial support to expand our trading opportunities. And we've got to look at things like deregulation, licensing and planning easements, where we're starting to withdraw some of those blocks that don't allow business use and allow us to expand within the high street, have extended hours, extended events, etc., so that we can build up the capacity to return, but financially robust, so that we are not beleaguered by limitations within licensing and planning, which we're finding at the moment. So that's work that we're doing with government at the moment, which I think is going to be vitally important as we lead into the end of the year, and we're going to see the full effect of this cost inflation position.
OK, thank you so much. And Dr. Gurlis, last question to you. Do you have optimism for the NHS at the moment? I know we've got these extraordinary 6 million people waiting list for treatment. A lot of people frustrated they can't have appointments with their GP. But do we have any reasons to be cheerful?
I'm afraid not. I wish I could say yes. I'm afraid not. I can only see a blame game. Hospital doctors blaming GPs, patients blaming GPs, GPs fighting back saying this isn't fair, even though many of them did close their doors during the pandemic. I'm extremely pessimistic because I can't see a way out of it. There are solutions, but no one is willing to grasp the nettle and take bold decisions. All people are doing is moaning. A lot of the mainstream media, some of the newspapers have really got it in for GPs in particular. And whether that's justified or not, it doesn't actually solve anything. We need a big, bold decision and a big, bold discussion from the public. What do you want and how much are you prepared to pay for it? Not through taxes, but other methods such as prescription charges and so on. So, no, I'm extremely pessimistic because I see what's happening out there. I'm wearing a shirt and tie today because I've been working all day. I'm not in the NHS. My colleagues and I saw over 50 people because these are people that can't see an NHS GP. This is busier than ever. And much as that may be good for me, it doesn't please me because it's not right. It's not the service that should be offered. And as I say, I've worked a very long day today and we've been very busy because we're open on a Saturday.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for giving us your time on a Saturday evening. Not an awful lot to be cheerful for. Dr. Lawrence Gurlis there and Michael Kill from the CEO at Nighttime Industries. A friend of mine went to the GP the other day for something, and the GP just said to her, I suggest you go private. Well, you're not going to get it on here. Why don't you just go private? Anyway, after the break, we're going to meet a woman who is trying to use next month's Platinum Jubilee to get more children into painting. We'll be back shortly.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. Now, there's less than a fortnight to go until the UK comes together to celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. And the historic occasion isn't just being marked with a series of street parties, concerts and parades. A recent survey of 7 to 11-year-olds found, surprisingly, that the Queen was the person they would most like to paint. And I'm joined now by Joy Perkle, who is currently working on her own portrait of the Queen. And I'm delighted to also say in the studio is 10-year-old Saskia Beaumont. Good evening, ladies. Saskia, have you been on the telly before?
Never.
You look quite excited when you came in. Do you like it here?
Yeah.
It's good, isn't it? Now, Joy, you've got your painting there that you're working on.
Yeah.
Can we have a little look at it, please?
Yes, I have to say that this is an acrylic sketch for a large oil painting.
That's lovely.
Thank you. It was very quick and it's not finished, but that gives you some idea of what I'm aiming to do, because I paint on a large scale normally.
OK, I love the yellow. So you do it. So hang on. So you do a small version first.
I do an acrylic sketch sometimes before I then launch into the finished piece.
Oh, wow. And were you surprised to hear that the Queen was the one that the children wanted to paint the most? I would have thought it would have been some, I don't know, rapper or TikTok star or something. It's quite nice to know that the Queen still has that appeal.
It is very nice to know she does, yes. No, I think that she's somebody that most age groups can relate to.
Is it funny? Saskia, now, would you want to paint the Queen?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
And I guess what this survey then, I suppose they said, who did you want to sit in the room with and paint, I guess. Is it do a portrait sitting for them. What do you like to paint?
I like to paint mostly like nice landscapes and things like that, and like pretty, I know, oceans and stuff.
And what, are you year 5?
Yes.
Yes. And how much art do you do every week at school? How many art lessons?
Yes, so we have one a week, but it's like whole afternoon on Friday for two hours on a Friday afternoon we do art, and yeah, I really enjoy it.
And Joy, we can get very kind of preoccupied by education being about exams these days.
Yes.
How do you feel art is sitting in the curriculum for children? Should we be prioritising it more?
Definitely. I have been a teacher at various points, and definitely it's gone down in the priority list. And I think, especially now with children struggling after the lockdown, I think art and being creative is vital.
What do they get out of it? And what do you get out of it?
It's very rewarding. It's an escape. Time just passes really quickly, and it's a subject where there is no correct answer. So I think it's very inclusive, for all children, all age groups. And actually, Saskia's portrait of the Queen, I wanted to show that too.
Oh, that is lovely. A much younger Queen, Saskia.
Yeah, that was a picture on BBC News where there was the Queen. She was just skipping on a cruise ship, and I thought I'd really like to paint that photo because it just looked just like she was just skipping on a cruise ship like just any other girl with no responsibility.
Hold it up for me, Jo?
Yes, of course.
So we can get a good look at that. So how long did that take you to do, Saskia?
So what I did was I had the photo in front of me, and I did the outline first. And I did the outline first in pencil, and then I watercolor painted over it with different colours, and then I went over the outline in black pen. So overall, it probably took me 25 minutes, half an hour.
And what I love about that, especially for the younger generation, they'll think that the Queen has always been an old lady.
That's true.
You probably think I've always been this old lady. I wasn't. When you're young, you tend to look at the Queen as the image that you've done there, the more traditional one that we know now. But I love the vibrancy of that and the energy and a kind of reminder that she hasn't always been a little old lady.
Yes, and the competition that Sudocrem have just launched is really why I've become involved in painting her portrait, because until October, all children are invited to make their portrait of the Queen, and I'll be one of the judges actually, which is fantastic. And the winning portrait will be, this is just a sort of little mock-up. It will actually be published on the special Sudocrem. Yes.
For anyone who doesn't have a baby, Sudocrem is excellent for nappy rash and lots of skin complaints for older children as well. That's what that is. So are you going to enter this competition then, Saskia?
Yes. I really like Sudocrem. I use it a lot. Especially when I get mosquito bites.
Oh, there we go.
You need to be very nice to me, Saskia, because I'm one of the judges. So that's...
And would you think about entering that picture into the competition?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I would paint any other picture of her because I think that's just quite a simple one, and it's quite nice to just express that she wasn't always an old lady.
Yeah, and the Jubilee, of course, coming up, Joy. What does that mean for the country, do you think, having...
I think
we've got 2 days. We've got Thursday, Friday as the bank holiday.
Well, that's a bonus, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we just need something to celebrate, just a diversion from the war that's going on, cost of living, endless bad news every time you turn on the radio or the TV. So I think it's a unifying celebration for us.
It feels a little like the royal family's in a bit of a precarious position, really, probably. For certainly as much as in my memory that I can remember, where you've got Meghan and Harry not being terribly popular with the British public, Prince William and Kate doing a great job, but William being booed at the football the other day because maybe that is partly to do with the cost of living crisis. Maybe we're seeing it through their excesses through a different prism.
Yeah.
But I guess that weekend we will all, I imagine, put to one side any negativity we might have.
I think nobody holds it against the Queen. I think most people probably feel sorry for her. It's always difficult when your children have problems, but she's still our figurehead. So, you know, I think she's always been well loved and continues to be.
In some way, it kind of humanises her because every family has
exactly
one annoying son, or you know,
Yes.
who didn't marry well that nobody likes. Or it makes them quite normal, really, doesn't it?
Hopefully not to the same degree, but
Yeah, no, exactly. And Saskia, what's your kind of feelings towards the royal family as a 10-year-old? What do they mean to you? What does that jubilee mean to you? Maybe nothing.
Well, it's really nice because it's like, because we have Britain's longest reigning monarch, and it must be really nice for the Queen because it's very nice. She was in charge for 70 years, 70 years in Buckingham Palace as the Queen of all of England. And I think like the whole royal family is kind of like, it's like almost like the family of the whole country almost.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice way of putting it. Well, thank you, ladies, very much for coming in on a Saturday night. Good luck with the competition.
Thank you very much.
I will get my 11, 13-year-olds to enter.
Yeah.
And the thing is, they do love. My daughter just won her art competition with making her Harry Potter model of the Quidditch pitch this week. I was
Fantastic.
very impressed with her. But, you know, like you're saying, for the children that don't particularly want to sit down and do maths and science all day, it's wonderful escapism, isn't it?
It is.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks very much.
Right, it is time for a quick break now, but in a few minutes we're going to be meeting this week's Great Britain, a woman who's taught thousands of people with disabilities how to dance. See you in a few minutes.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, following the Chipolata-gate scandal surrounding pop star Peter Andre, we'll be asking the eternal question, does size matter? We'll speak to several top experts. In My Big Opinion, why football has got to give up coercive woke gestures. And is Tom Cruise the greatest film star of all time? Given all the movies he's made here in the UK, I'm arguing he should receive an honorary knighthood from the Queen. Plus, my Mark Meets guest is radio and TV legend David Diddy Hamilton. We don't do boring, not on my watch. Bring a bottle and I'll see you at 9.
Welcome back. Now, if you're a new viewer or listener, this is the time in the show when we meet our Great Britain, a person who has gone above and beyond to contribute to society and who we feel deserves wider recognition. And this evening, I'm delighted to say that I'm joined in the studio by the aptly named Natasha Britton. Good evening, Natasha. Now, for more than 2 decades, Natasha has been teaching people to dance with disabilities, and thousands have benefited, have they not, from your great work. And last month, she was at the Palace of Westminster, where she received a British Citizen Award. Congratulations, Natasha.
Thank you.
How do you get nominated for a British Citizen Award, and how do you win it?
Well, anyone can be nominated. Anyone can make a nomination. So I was really lucky to be nominated by a family member, and they pulled together lots of information and
facts and all the stuff.
Yeah, from lots of people that I've worked with over the years.
Yeah, amazing. And then they submit that, and then what happens? You got a letter through the post? Mrs. Britton, you're a Great Britain.
Yes.
Is that how it goes?
Yeah, so I got an email and screamed in the kitchen and ran down the hallway and told the children. But it was...
Were they impressed?
They were really impressed.
Oh, my children wouldn't have been remotely impressed. They would have just gone, yeah, whatever, I'm not bothered.
No,
they were pleased for you.
They were really proud. It was under embargo for a while, so it was, top secret in our house.
Wow.
But yeah, really, really proud moment.
And how old are your children?
10 and 12.
And they managed to keep it a secret?
Yes, yeah, they're really good.
Oh, amazing. So tell us what you do. Tell us about why you won the award.
So I've worked 22 years now in inclusive dance. So I teach people, mostly with learning disabilities is my kind of main area and specialism. And I teach children and adults. And as well as that, I work a lot with creating education and training programmes for people who want to work in inclusive dance too.
So we're seeing some pictures for anybody that's listening on the radio. We're seeing some pictures here. Is this your studio where you've got your dancers in there?
So that's the brand new South East Dance space, which is absolutely fantastic. We're really lucky that we've been taken on as a partner with South East Dance to deliver our classes in their space. So yeah. Really, really exciting.
So tell me about, because I imagine that some of these young people, I'm not going to call them children because there will be young adults as well. What's the youngest who come and dance with you, and what are the oldest?
So we've got the youth class start at 10, but I do go into SEN schools and work with younger children.
Right.
And then our adult group, I think the oldest is actually in their early 40s.
And so have many of them danced before when they come to you?
Some have. I think, dance is for everyone, isn't it? So people might have danced in different contexts and, nightclubs and in their kitchens and wherever else. But it's about bringing people together and making dance a collaborative thing, making it something that's a social event whilst increasing confidence and communication and, exercising and having fun at the same time.
And when some of these young people arrive to you, do they know kind of how it's going to go? Do they already come in feeling extrovert and wanting to show off, or do you have to coax some of them out of their shell a little?
I guess a bit of both. I mean, some people come and they're really, really enthusiastic and they want to show their moves and they're really excited about that. But other people might come and be really quite shy and kind of not know what to expect. And I think there's a lot of activities where perhaps people's needs aren't met. And I think sometimes the young people who come and their parents might feel quite nervous about that. So there's a lot of kind of putting people at ease and making sure that people feel really welcome.
And is there something about dance as opposed to a sports match which might have specific rules that some people with learning needs might find quite hard to follow? The organic nature of dance, I imagine, kind of plays to their strengths a little.
Yeah, definitely. And, so we do use a lot of improvisation as a way of kind of creating movement as a starting point so that people feel really comfortable in the movement that they're making. And then we start to apply the rules, as you say, to kind of create some guidance to how, what steer it's going to take and how we're going to set a routine.
And it must be really fun.
Yeah.
I bet you have some proper laughs, don't you, amongst yourselves?
I do. I am a fan of the silliness, so we have a lot of fun in class. And we do some sensible work too, but lots of fun.
How lovely. And how did you manage during lockdowns? Because presumably you had to close all the classes, I guess, did you?
So actually we formed Parable Dance, my co-founder Erica and I formed Parable Dance in 2019, so literally just before lockdown. So we hadn't actually started our weekly groups at that point.
Right.
And it's always been very important to us to provide education and training for other dance teachers, especially dance artists with disabilities themselves. And so during the lockdown, it actually provided an opportunity for us to be able to do more of that. So there was a lot of online work. We created an hour-long resource film that featured 42 different artists from all around the UK giving their advice about inclusive practice. And we created a mentoring programme, 2 different networks, delivered a lot of professional development over Zoom. So yeah, we diversified and made it work in our favour.
Because I know that some families that I know personally who have children with extra needs, they found the lockdowns, the homeschooling, the closing of the facilities that really meant so much to them very, very hard.
Yeah.
You know, it was hard enough for those of us homeschooling children without extra needs, but those for whom that setting was so important, they found it really difficult, didn't they?
Yeah, really difficult. And a lot of people were isolating for much longer as well. So the learning disabled community was hit particularly hard by COVID. So there was a lot of sadness surrounding that.
Yeah, there was.
We delivered a couple of really fun, very silly online projects to try and kind of lift spirits and things. So we worked in partnership with an organisation in Brighton called Carousel, and we delivered some online dance party warm-ups that were kind of streamed each week live and then led to this online dance party at Christmas, which was really good fun.
Amazing. Yeah. And what now for Parable? What are your ambitions? Now you're not only a Citizen Award, but you're a Great Britain on the Neil Oliver Show. I mean, the pressure's on now.
Well, we've just launched. So Parable has just launched a second branch in New York. So our main focus is kind of channeling that work, making sure that we build up our profile there as well. But yeah, more of the same. Just because everyone's back in person now and actually able to dance together in a studio, it's fantastic. So we're just getting out, we're meeting people, networking, getting into lots of the local schools that we weren't able to get into before.
And it feels like, dancing, pre-pandemic at least, and hopefully back again now, was having a real kind of enjoying a renaissance, right? We had Strictly, which is doing so well, and every town hall seems to have a street dance class for kids. It feels like dancing was at a really good time, wasn't it?
It was, and sadly, it's one of the things that's being stripped back a lot in education, which is really, really sad. I mean, the arts have suffered massively as a result of the pandemic. So, everyone I know who's working in the arts is really fighting to be noticed, to make sure that their work is recognised and is able to continue.
Well, you have been recognised. We are recognising you as well tonight. Thank you so much, Natasha Britton, our Great Britain tonight. Thank you so much. Keep up the amazing work. Any website details for people who want to have a look at where you are and what you do? Where can they go?
Absolutely. Parabledance.co.uk, and we're on all the social media.
And it's P-A-R-A-B-L-E, Parable Dance. OK, brilliant. Thank you, Natasha.
Thank you.
OK, you're watching Neil Oliver live, presented this evening by me, Bev Turner, on GB News TV and DAB Plus Radio. I am here until 8 o'clock this evening. In a few minutes, we're going to be discussing the cost of living crisis, which will really bring home how hard things are for some people. I'll be speaking to an ex-Marine and motivational speaker who's written a book about the history of the Royal Marines. And we'll be joined in the studio by a gin expert. To be honest, it's the main reason that I'm here. He's going to be showing us the best summer cocktails, but first, it's the news headlines, brought to you this evening by Ray Addison.
Thanks, Bev. I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. Labour is calling on Boris Johnson to urgently explain his meetings with Sue Gray to discuss the so-called Partygate report into COVID rule-breaking. It's understood that they met at least once while the report was being drafted. Labour's deputy leader, Angela Rayner, says people deserve to know the truth. The Foreign Secretary is meeting with a top Democrat over government plans to scrap parts of the Northern Ireland Protocol. The International Trade Secretary, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, has already met Democrat Richard Neal to discuss UK-US trade. It follows a warning from the US House Speaker that Congress won't support a free trade deal with the UK if it discards the post-Brexit agreement. Sir Ian Duncan-Smith has called for benefits to be boosted in line with inflation to protect the public from mounting living costs. The former Conservative leader says rebates and discretionary funds represent a step in the wrong direction for tackling poverty. He argues it would be better to uplift universal credit. He told GB News the government has the budget to boost benefits.
need to lower taxes and actually assist those on benefits. And it won't lead to extra debt. The government has the headroom. 2 years running, they've outperformed their own forecasts by 91 and 90 billion respectively, nearly 200 billion, better than they were expected to be 2 years ago. So this is money that can be used for this purpose.
Unions are warning of potentially the biggest rail strike in modern history. 40,000 staff from Network Rail and 15 train companies are voting on action over pay. It could create serious challenges in keeping goods moving and supermarket shelves stocked. 3 people have been taken to hospital after a stand collapsed during a rehearsal of the Trooping of the Colour in London this morning. 2 others were treated by paramedics and discharged at the scene in Horse Guards Road. Witnesses say crowds were evacuated by emergency services and the ceremony was cut short. Boris Johnson has congratulated Labour's Anthony Albanese on his election as Prime Minister of Australia. Outgoing PM Scott Morrison conceded defeat despite millions of votes yet to be counted. He also announced that he'll step down as leader of the Liberal Party after losing ground to environment and climate-focused parties like the Greens and Independents. Mr Albanese says his goal is to unite.
Australian people have voted for change. I am humbled by this victory, and I'm honoured to be given the opportunity to serve as the 31st Prime Minister of Australia. My Labor team will work every day to bring Australians together, and I will lead a government worthy of the people of Australia.
Well, we're on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. This is, of course, GB News. Now let's get back to Neil Oliver Live with Bev.
Now, everyone in the country is being affected in some way by the cost of living or post-lockdown living crisis. Earlier this week, it was announced that inflation is now at 9%, which is its highest level for 40 years. The boss of Marks & Spencer's has warned that apocalyptic food price rises could be on the way as more and more families face the awful prospect of having to decide between eating and heating. The 54% increase in the energy price cap is especially worrying for people with disabilities. I wanted to talk to Debbie Cooper. Her husband, Mark, suffers from motor neurone disease, and she joins me now. Debbie, thank you so much for speaking to us tonight. I'm so glad we can give you a voice, as you must find it so frustrating to hear these stories of cost of living and think that it's not just about having a budget trolley full of shopping, but for you, it could almost be about life or death, isn't it? Is that an exaggeration?
No, not at all, Bev. As I say, with Mark's condition, just in his room alone, he has over 15 appliances on, different machines, bed, his hoist, because he needs everything, because he can't do physically nothing for himself. So all these machines have to be on, obviously to keep Mark alive, I should say. Keep Mark alive. He's on a ventilator 24 hours a day, so you have that plugged in 24 hours, but you've also got to have a backup ventilator plugged in. So, I have to have everything plugged in 24 hours because he's always got to have a backup on as well as not just having your normal appliances running through the day for like your washing and things like that. He needs everything plugged in all the time.
Oh, Debbie, I'm so sorry. Well, for anyone listening on the radio, we're watching some pictures now of you caring for Mark. And as you say, he is often, all the time, connected to various machines which allow him to be with you and to have a quality of life with you. Do you get any help from the state in terms of your electricity bill, even at the best of times? Do you get any kind of support for that?
No, I work full-time. I do full-time care for the company who look after Mark. I work with those. So I work 60 plus hours with that. I also work another part-time job. We get no benefits whatsoever. I am the sole breadwinner of the family, I should say. I've got 3 teenage children. So yeah, I do it all myself. I don't rely on anything, and I get no help from anybody at all.
And how long has Mark been unwell for, if you don't mind me asking?
So he's had motor neurons since he got diagnosed in end of April 2019, but he had a long spout in hospital last October, where it was going to be the end of life route, or he chooses to have a tracheostomy fitted, which meant being on a ventilator 24 hours. And since then, that has given him a lot better quality of life. But as I say, with that, there's a lot of other things to run alongside that. He has to have 24-hour care in the home, as well as myself. We have a nurse and a carer 24 hours a day to help look after him. But as I say, just with all the extra equipment, what is needed within him being able to be at home, it's not the nicest of situations, but we get by.
Yeah, you're obviously doing an amazing job of keeping the ship afloat, keeping the family all going, as women often do. But give me an idea, how much has your electricity bill gone up by recently?
So usually, like as I say, what it was before, that was before, even though Mark was still poorly before, he didn't have all this equipment in the house because he wasn't on a ventilator. So when you're on a ventilator with Mark's condition, you need things like a suction machine and a cough assist and other things. He didn't need those items before. So our bills have gone up, more than double.
Well done, good recovery.
Yeah, more than double.
More than double.
And so I have to work extra hours to... it's not just the electricity. I've got to keep the house at a certain temperature because Mark can't get cold, because otherwise it would be a risk of infection for him. So the house has always got to be nice and warm for him. So, it's not as if I can turn the heating down because I think, let's just turn it down and put a jumper on. It's not, I haven't got that. I can't have that with Mark.
So when you hear, Debbie, of kind of stories that were in the press yesterday that Rishi Sunak is the first sitting MP to have made it onto the Sunday Times rich list, and families are billionaires, how does it make you feel?
I would like him or someone like himself to come into my home for a week or so and see how he would manage, how we manage, and just give him a bit of reality what it's actually like, because we don't have that luxury.
So where will you? How do you manage to pay these bills now? Where do you cut your corners as a family? How do you balance the books under these extraordinary circumstances?
So obviously it's telling the kids we don't have anything on standby, make sure when they're not watching the TV or out of a room, turn lights and things off. I've just got to be more careful within the other rooms of the house because Mark is the priority because of obviously what he needs. So you've just got to be, you just can't not, you've got to go in like the mode where you've constantly turning lights off, switches off. I do extra hours to pay for the bills and do the shopping. I try and shop as budgetedly as I can. Luckily, I've got good help with family and friends, but I can't always rely on those.
You see, I'm doing the same with my teenagers. I keep saying, turn the blimmin' lights off. But you know what, they're teenagers. It just doesn't feel very important to them, does it? And they just go, well, it's only a light bulb. And actually, only a light bulb, they were right. Not that long ago, only a light bulb probably wouldn't add that much to your bill. But only a light bulb now is causing a significant difference. I'm still baffled that the government aren't doing more to help people. I mean, they've put this £200 energy bill rebate, haven't they, and a £150 cut in council tax for most UK households. But it just doesn't seem like enough. It isn't enough.
It isn't enough. That doesn't even cover. I mean, I know that doesn't even cover my council tax. What I pay full council tax. So my council tax bill, that £150 is I'm grateful for it. But on a normal typical month, it is more than that amount anyway. As I say, my energy bills are just... We do have solar panels, but that's made no difference whatsoever. We got those before all this came out, to thinking that would help us, but it doesn't.
They haven't worked at all.
Not really, no.
No, I think retrofitting them on houses, it's great, isn't it, to try and make that effort, but it doesn't always work. Listen, Debbie, I wish you and Mark all the best. Well done. You're doing the most amazing job. And
thank you, Beth.
I don't, honestly, I think it really brings it home what individual people are going through, particularly in your circumstances. So we wish you all the best, my love. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lembit, your father died of motor neurone disease.
Yeah, he did. And just to explain the disease, it's very simple to explain. It's the opposite of Alzheimer's. With Alzheimer's, your mind goes, but your body's sound. With motor neuron disease, your mind's sound, but your body goes. You literally can't move. And oftentimes, the last thing that goes is your breathing. That's why the ventilation is so important. And I was president of the Motor Neuron Disease Association for a while. We raised quite a lot of money for it. So at a human level, I really get it. Because the man that she married, the man that she loves, is still there, right to the end. And kind of reminds me of how I felt when my father passed away.
I'm sure.
The other side of this, and I think Debbie was really very candid and very lucid there, and that's really impressive.
Yeah.
And I really was so close to a cure for this at the moment, and actually GBNews has covered this before as well. The other side of this is the energy costs that she was describing. I've actually got solar panels. Utterly useless.
Really?
Total waste of money. I spent thousands on them, and I can't even detect a change in my bills. But the problem we've got here is, and I don't want to bang on this, I inevitably always say there is no climate crisis, because there isn't, in my view. But the problem is, let's not pretend. The reason we've got a cost of living crisis is because it's about energy, because we've got this idiotic, balmy obsession with
net zero.
Net zero. It's stupid.
Yeah, I agree.
We've got £1 trillion worth of gas right under our feet, but because of this virtue signalling, unscientific nonsense from the government and the environmentalists, who should be damn well ashamed of themselves because of the trouble they cause people like Debbie, we've now got this 9% inflation. If we actually home grew our energy, which isn't wrecking the planet, then we wouldn't actually have this problem. And I'm going to stop there because it really annoys me.
Yeah, I feel it. Listen, I love a passionate opinion. I'm not going to knock you for that. We've heard how that cost of living crisis is affecting Debbie and her family. So let's get the views of a personal financial expert on where we go from here. I'm joined now by Pete Komalafe, who is the founder of Conversation in Money. Good evening, Pete. I'm sure you were listening to our conversation there. Do you share some of the frustrations that we've heard from Lembit and also from Debbie about the fact that the government just don't seem to be doing anything about our utility bill crisis that everybody's feeling?
Yeah, 100%. I can completely and utterly relate to, especially with what Debbie is experiencing right now. It's extremely difficult to hear those kind of things. And when you look at the forecast coming out of the government, we were told that inflation was going to be 10% by the end of this year. It's already at 9% and we're in May. So I feel as though, not that they're playing fast and loose with these numbers, but there is worse to come. And I think we just need to be prepared for it.
Explain to us, because there will be people watching this, my 18-year-old's watching, he won't know, why does inflation affect us on a daily basis? What does that actually mean? Is it just as simple as less for your money?
Technically, yes, but inflation is essentially the cost of the products and the services that we use on a day-to-day basis increasing in price. So the main driver for inflation at the moment is energy prices, and that is because of obviously the war in Ukraine, other factors as well, bottlenecks, supply chain issues. So the way I typically explain this is in a simple form. If you're doing your weekly shop and it costs you £100, then next week it costs you £109. That difference essentially is inflation, and that goes across all of the products and all of the services that we buy and use.
Are there some shop owners, though, who are taking advantage, shall we say, of the fact that we all believe things are getting more expensive, and therefore maybe the prices are just being put up a little bit and hoping we won't notice?
I think it's interesting you say this, actually, because I was reading a piece the other day, actually, and I did a live on YouTube talking about this specifically. Oftentimes when you think about inflation, you think about business increasing cost as they experience the cost. And the graphs out of the statisticians at the moment are saying that actually the cost of business is slightly higher than the cost that we're seeing at the moment in our increase in prices, essentially. So that doesn't 100% negate the fact that there will be some businesses who will be taking advantage of this. I mean, we know that the fuel duty wasn't fully passed on to consumers at the pump, so there will be a little bit of that going on, but I don't think that's necessarily the case across the board.
What can people do, Pete? Because often at a time like this, when you see your bills go up, experts like you will say, get on a different tariff, shop around, change your provider, and yet we're hearing that there's no point doing that at the moment. Why is that?
Well, because you've got the energy cap prices at the moment, the fear is, I mean, we've got another one of these coming in October, and this is the one big driver for me, whereas we're at 9% inflation right now. That doesn't take into context that we are going to see another 40% increase in October. So when we get to October and we factor that in, it means that we're going to see inflation potentially spike even more. But with the energy price caps at the moment, a lot of the deals that are out there currently still mean that most people will be better off if they simply just stay put. But it's interesting listening to people like, Deborah, who are going through, real things at the moment, real struggles. And this is a tip that I've always been giving people, because unfortunately, there is still a lot of money being left on the table when it comes to the benefits that we're entitled to. It's £15 billion just last year. And that is a byproduct of the fact that people feel that they're not either entitled to a certain benefit because they earn a certain amount. And I'm encouraging everybody to go and check what benefits they are entitled to, because you don't know what might be left on the table that you could, which really is your money. So there are two websites that I've been recommending for people to go and have a look at. That's entitled2.co.uk and there's turntous.org.uk. It will take about 5 to 10 minutes, put in all of your information, but it will check every single benefit out there and say, look, we think that you're entitled to this. It could be 5 to 10 minutes, very well spent, just to put a little bit of extra money in your pocket.
And what about kind of just simply budgeting, Pete? Do you think there's a lot of people who don't really know what their outgoings and incomings are on a monthly basis? And actually, once we sit down and do it, it can be quite a shock. I hadn't done it until I got divorced. I can't lie. And then in order to get divorced, I had to work out what I was spending, and I was quite surprised. Lembit's smiling at me here because but it's a good. I'm not recommending you would need to get divorced in order to do this, but actually, it's a good kind of discipline to get yourself into, isn't it? To keep an eye on your incomings and your outgoings.
It is 100%. I mean, we've still got Secret Spenders going on Channel 4 at the moment. And one of the exercises that I did with everyone as the financial expert on that program was really encourage people to get into their money in, money out situations. I think to put a broad blanket over it to say that people don't know how to budget, and I think, you've had a couple of MPs who have come out with nonsense like that in the past few weeks. I don't think you can generalize it. I think that ultimately when it comes to financial habits, and these are the most important things that we need in financial literacy, we don't get taught it in school. So looking at our statements, looking at where we're spending our money doesn't naturally come to us. We just assume that we're okay. And it's very, very difficult to do that when you're already struggling to make ends meet. You almost want to bury your head in the sand and not look at the situation because you know that it's bad. But I would encourage anybody to do it, just to really make sure that there isn't anything that you're not using, that you're paying for, that you can save money on. I do it on a regular basis, and it will take, a little bit of effort, a little bit of time just to have a look at it. And I always say to people, look, there's nothing wrong with admitting that, okay, look, I made a little bit of help. But where we are currently and where we're potentially moving to with the cost of living crisis at this point in time, unfortunately, budgeting isn't going to be the only thing. Yes, it's the fundamental thing that you need to give yourself an idea of where you're spending your money. But after a certain extent, it's difficult to say cut, because there's only so much you can cut.
Yeah, absolutely. OK, thank you so much, Pete Kamalafe there, with some good tips. It's I think Pete's right. I wasn't suggesting, we all need to do our books to know where we're up to, but it's just so easy. And sometimes those direct debits which get set up, or you've put your card details into something you didn't know you were going to pay for, and suddenly you see it on your bank statement. Anyway, right, I bet you don't know that one of the biggest sporting events in the world takes place in the UK this summer. After the break, I'll speak to the man who's helping to organise it, and I'll tell you where it is going to be held. Don't go away.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. Now, this summer, we will all be in need of some cheering normality, and what better way than a massive sporting event with echoes of London 2012. Can you believe that's 10 years ago? I remember how good that was. Well, this July and August, the Commonwealth Games is coming to Birmingham. A great chance to see some of the world's top sporting superstars and maybe inspire your own children to take up the sport. So joining me now is one of the leading figures involved with the Games, the Chief Financial Officer, David Grady. David, hello. We have all had a rubbish 2 years. We need a happy sporting event to cheer us up. No pressure. How's it all going?
Well, Beverly, thanks for having me. It's going very well. Thank you very much. We're delighted today. We've had a really busy day in Birmingham. 2 super test events of the new venues for the Games this summer. We've had a record crowd over at the newly refurbished Alexander Stadium, which is the host venue for the athletics. And we've had a really successful test event at the new Aquatics Centre over in Sandwell. So, as you say, everybody needs a lift, and we are in great shape to do that for the country this summer.
How nervous have you all been in the last year or so that this was not going to happen at all? How many contingency planning meetings have you had?
We have had a huge number of contingency planning meetings, as you'd expect, but I don't think we ever got to the point where we thought it wasn't going to happen. We've got a world-leading expertise base in the UK for these kind of global mega events. As you'd understand, I heard you mentioned London, but we've had Glasgow in 2014 as well, and many other events in between. So I think we always thought we had a plan, but clearly nobody was in control of where COVID was going. But we are delighted, clearly, that we are going to be the first sort of full venues global mega event since the crisis, and a great chance for everyone around the world to come back and, as you say, do something a little bit more normal.
Now, David, the Commonwealth Games is very close to my heart personally. So my brother, Adrian Turner, he gets a mention on the telly for the first time in years. He won a silver medal in the swimming event in Manchester, in our hometown. When was the Manchester Games? I want to say 2008? 2002? Is it that long ago?
Yeah, I think so.
2002, oh my word. Okay, so what I remember about the Commonwealth Games, for some athletes and also for some sports, this will be their Olympics. You know, it might be quite easy to say, oh, well, it's not the Olympics. Oh, he's gone. Is David gone? We're going to try and get him back. But I was just saying, it might be quite easy to kind of think, well, this isn't the Olympics, is it? But for some athletes, this will be their Olympics. And also for some sports. I don't know whether you're familiar very much with netball, Lembit Opik. Are you much of a netballer?
Loves it. It's my temple.
He absolutely loves it.
Every sport.
Lembit's favourite is the female beach volleyball. He goes to every competition.
You know that is on at the Commonwealth. You know that.
Hey, can I tell you? I don't want to be disrespectful to the athletes.
How did I know you were going to have a beach volleyball story?
My mates all went to the London 2012 female beach volleyball. They said it was sad, really, because it was just a load of 40-year-old blokes having a beer.
When you say your mates, you mean you?
Yeah,
you mean
but
you?
I bet they came away with a renewed appreciation for women's sports.
Let me tell you, that must have been amazing for you because they built that whole new aquatic centre. I didn't know your brother was Adrian Turner, but of course famous for winning for doing so well in his hometown. And of course he then went on to get to the semi-finals in Athens 2 years later.
Yes, he did.
How did you know
that? How do you know that, you weirdo?
Because I just consulted Wikipedia.
That was very impressive. You didn't need to let the cat out of the bag there.
My brother would be delighted.
I could have lied and got away with that.
But you see, netball, so the reason I mentioned netball isn't in the Olympics, it's in the Commonwealth Games, so England netball will be amazing.
I'll tell you what we want in the Olympics. You know when, 2012, I used to be an Olympic advisor to London Assembly Conservatives. What? Well, no, because I wasn't on the bid team, I just advised the Assembly members. Right, but anyway, you're allowed to pick certain sports that you can bring in, and I had 3 sports I'd like to bring in. First of all, darts, right? I would love at the opening ceremony, the darts place. Then there's that thing that they do in Edinburgh, take the cannon to bits and run round the arena. That was another one. And then there's another one they do in Windsor, which is called the brick hanging ceremony. And what you do is the sergeants...
This is before the watershed.
No, it's OK. The sergeants in the household, in the divisions, keep a brick from Waterloo and they have to run round the town being attacked.
I want to go back to somebody who's going to talk to me a bit more sensibly about sport.
Here.
David, are you still there rather than darts? Sorry, David. We lost you for a moment there. But we were saying about, for some of these athletes and some of these sports, this is their Olympics and we kind of have to get behind them, don't we, and celebrate with them.
We've had some great home winners at the Alexander Stadium, so I don't think there's going to be any danger of us not being able to get behind our heroes. Albeit I did just come in on the end of the last conversation. I don't think the brick event is going to be
darts.
there.
No darts, David. No darts. No darts. And what about the facilities that will be left behind? Because actually Manchester did a really good job of providing sports facilities for the city. I would say London 2012 did a much less impressive job of leaving sports facilities. I'm sorry, Lembit is pulling his face, disagrees. But it hasn't been used by the members of the public in the same way that the Games facilities in Manchester were. What are your plans in that regard?
So one of the reasons Birmingham took on the Games this time around was because it wasn't originally coming to Birmingham in 2022. Took on the Games at short notice after Durban pulled out. And the reason it came to Birmingham was because we largely had the facilities and the infrastructure in place. So we only have 2 new venues, which are the Aquatic Centre and the refurbished Alexander Stadium. Our investment is largely in the communities and the sort of the people infrastructure that ensures that the great venues we'll be using are there and able for the youth that are motivated and inspired by our games to continue their journeys in sport after the event. So I can see you just seeing the photos of our new stadium, which I hope you agree looks fabulous.
It does look fabulous. You've got a competition there this weekend, haven't you? Or is it next weekend?
No, it was this weekend. We've all been out there this afternoon. The Diamond League, our friends at UK Athletics have hosted the Diamond League at the stadium this afternoon. We've had a record crowd for that stadium. So everything has gone to plan so far today. And I'm sure you can imagine that it's not just the stuff in front of the camera on the track. We've got huge numbers of people making sure that spectators can get to the venue from the city centre and from the park and rides. We've got catering operations, etc., and all of that has been tested today ahead of the Commonwealth Games in 68 days' time.
I'm getting a sense of, like, I'm remembering what that build-up to London 2012 was like, David, just hearing you talk about this. It was such a great time for this country. There's a huge amount on your shoulders. You've got to generate a little bit of that enthusiasm this summer. We all need it.
Well, we do. And I think if you were in the city today, you would absolutely understand that enthusiasm is there. If you saw the athletes and their response to the stadium and the crowd, first time it's been used at the sort of the elite level, and the times and the performances were magnificent. And once that place gets full this summer, there will be something we all remember for a long time.
It will be. I was in Birmingham yesterday, actually, and I haven't been for a very, very long time, and I couldn't believe how beautiful Birmingham is. I'd sort of forgotten that Birmingham itself is utterly beautiful, where you've got such a brilliant... you've got that amazing positioning, the juxtaposition, actually, of the very old buildings. Is it called Paradise Square? Next to this there we go. We're seeing the pictures now of some of the incredible new architecture that you've got alongside the very traditional. And I think people need a good reminder, a couple of weeks of sport, to remember how beautiful Birmingham can be.
I think we might use your quote, how beautiful Birmingham is. It's very kind of you to say, because I grew up here. I'm very proud of the place.
Well, you should be. And we can still get tickets, David, can't we? Anybody watching this thinking, what am I doing then? 28th of July to August the 8th, where can we get tickets? What have you got left? What would you recommend we go and see?
You can get tickets, but it's a bit of a call to action because they are selling out very fast. There are tickets for most things left. Birmingham2022.com/tickets. You will find tickets there on free sale. So please, you knock yourselves out and come and enjoy some of the world-class sport that is going to be on your doorstep this summer.
Well, I will be doing that. I will be getting some tickets to come and watch the swimming. I've not given up on the possibility I might be on the netball team, to be completely honest. My Tuesday night goal defending is excellent. But I do wish you all the best. David, come back and talk to us again, won't you, as the games get a little bit closer. Maybe I can come down with my microphone and see what you're doing down there as well, because I just think it's the most fantastic thing that for this country and the most fantastic event, and all of you guys working down there. Thank you so much.
We'd love to have you. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you, David Grady. Sounds good, guys, doesn't it?
When I was at school in Belfast, I was very good at cross-country. I was like the Royal Belfast Academical Institution equivalent of Forrest Gump. Run, Lambert, run. And I really enjoyed it. Obviously, maybe not so much now. You're right, but the thing is, Commonwealth Games doesn't sound like Olympics.
No.
But when you watch it, the standard's the same. World records are set at every Commonwealth Games.
Especially, I think, because so many athletes have not had the usual sporting schedule for the last couple of years, so it will be a big deal. I'm glad we could talk about that. OK, now, a story which would probably be better suited to Neil Oliver, as it involves history, and I can barely remember what I had for breakfast, but it does involve a handsome former Marine turned explorer, so I said I'd give it a go. So, Monty Halls, thank you so much for joining us. You have achieved a huge amount in your life. Good to see you. First-class biology degree, officially being named a superhuman by Channel 4. You've written several books. What's been the best bit about being you, Monty Halls?
Oh, blimey, what a question. What a question. Thank you very much for having me on initially. And sorry, we're a bit glitchy. I think my screen's a bit glitchy. I'm in deepest, darkest Devon. The best bit about being me, my little girls.
Oh,
I've got
that's very
lovely
nice.
little girls who are next door watching telly. They can't believe how late they've been allowed to watch telly because of this interview. So the longer you string it out, the better, as far as they're concerned.
So you've got this book out, Monty, now, about the history of the Marines. It doesn't sound like it would naturally be my bedtime reading. Sell it to me.
Well, the first thing is it's not a history book. There's an awful lot of very good histories about the Royal Marines. They go back 350 years. You'll see it's called Commando, and it's actually about the formation of the Commandos, which was only 80 years ago in World War II, and it's about latter-day conflicts, so Afghanistan, Iraq, the Falklands, and it's about individuals as well, these extraordinary individuals. It's just full of individual stories operating under the banner of the Green Beret, essentially that great unifying factor of the Green Beret, which is a legendary global symbol for military excellence. So it's a series of portraits, really. And for me, it was just a chance to go and meet my heroes. You know, these are extraordinary individuals. So, yeah, that's what the book is, really.
OK, I've quite fancied that, Monty. You've sold it to me. I do like the sound of that. When they said it was a book about the history of the Marines, I was like, oh, that may not be my cup of tea. But actually, that's the personal stories, right, are what we enjoy reading about. Now, your personal story has been amazing. When were you in the Marines? When did you leave? And what did you do whilst you were there? What were your main memorable acts of service that you did?
Well, it's a good question, because I didn't do that long. I did 88 to 96, 1988 to 1996. It was a pretty quiet period globally as well, so I didn't really get deployed anywhere significant, and that's important, because I certainly don't want to come across as this amazing, heroic, battle-scarred figure. I'm nothing bottle-scarred is more accurate, probably, because I had a great time when I was in the Marines. But I realized that it had this extraordinary culture and this extraordinary ethos that I carried with me for the rest of my life. It was the kind of making of me, really. And I became really interested in that latterly. And that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, because I thought it's the DNA of the organization goes back so far. And they had this extraordinary thing of becoming the commando force and starting to operate at the elite level 80 years ago. And Churchill said they're the greatest force that's ever existed, this group. And that's the reason I thought, oh, do you know what? I think it's worth burrowing into that a little bit. And very quickly, as I said, it became stories of individuals. And the defining features are kind of humility. They don't like talking about it. They're like, no, I was just doing my job. It was nothing. Sort of near, I don't want to over-egg it, but near sort of superhuman feats as you turn the page. You're like, oh my goodness, it's remarkable what this person did in all facets. So land, sea, air, diving, loads of different conflicts. And from that, a picture emerges. It's like a mosaic, and a picture emerges of why the organization's so special.
I don't know whether you have any knowledge of these facts. It's a bit mean to spring it on you, Monty, but do we still manage to recruit enough young people into the Marines as we did before? Or are this next generation of snowflakes slightly averse to such manly behaviour?
Now, you've used a very important expression there, two very important expressions. One is snowflakes. Let me assure you, the young men and women going through commando training at the moment are as good as they've ever been. And the first program of the series, we sort of celebrated that, really, because we followed a group of young people getting their Green Berets. And we had Julian Thompson talk at the end, sort of talking head interview thing. And Julian Thompson was the head of 3 Commando Brigade in the Falklands conflict. And he said they're better than we were. They've got to be more technically proficient, more well-rounded, more professional than we were. So it was really striking, that. And the second thing is trying to encourage diversity. There's a huge appetite within the commandos to get every facet of society in, including women. And that at the moment is a skills shortage within the Corps. You know, the assets and the values and the differences that a female perspective bring and different sectors of society bring is felt very strongly by the Royal Marines to be an area they need to work on. They need to encourage more people to come in. So the episode coming up tomorrow is all about celebrating the diversity of the organisation as well.
Do you think, though, I often think in this kind of striving to not stereotype genders, I mean, we won't even go into the non-binary debate, but in this effort not to stereotype, we're actually forgetting that men and women have different strengths and different weaknesses, and that's okay, Monty, is it not?
Oh, 100%. And the great thing about the commandos is they have a set of standards. They've got a set of tests you have to pass in a certain time, carrying a certain amount of weight. And if you don't do it, you're not a commando. Doesn't matter if you're a man, a woman, doesn't matter ethnicity, background, whatever. And that's why they're quite an egalitarian organization, really. But there are perceptions amongst perhaps, the female sector of the population or certain groups within the population that they wouldn't be welcomed. And the most important thing there is that if you can hit that standard and get the Green Beret, get the lid, as they say, you're in. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you come from.
Yeah.
And You know, that's a really precious thing to them, that is the standard. We don't have a female pass. We don't have a Commonwealth pass. We don't have, that's the standard. But if you get it, you're in. That's it. And it's membership for life.
Brilliant. Monty, what's your book called? I'm now going to go and buy it. It's bedtime reading.
Excellent. It's called Commando, the inside story of Britain's Royal Marines. There it is.
Right, you can go and put the girls to bed now. They're going to be really disappointed. But off you go. Nice to talk to you. Take care.
No worries, you too.
Right, to be completely honest, the rest of the show up to this point, is I've just been killing time because I'm waiting for the guy to come in with the cocktails. He's going to be in here in just a minute. Tell us how to make the perfect drink. See you in a couple of minutes.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, following the Chipolategate scandal surrounding pop star Peter Andre, we'll be asking the eternal question, does size matter? We'll speak to several top experts. In my big opinion, why football has got to give up coercive woke gestures. And is Tom Cruise the greatest film star of all time? Given all the movies he's made here in the UK, I'm arguing he should receive an honorary knighthood from the Queen. Plus, my Mark Meets guest is radio and TV legend David Diddy Hamilton. We don't do boring, not on my watch. Bring a bottle and I'll see you at 9.
Right, can you all just behave yourselves? It's all getting a bit giddy in here. Because this is a bit of the show we've all been looking forward to. We've relocated to a different part of the show now. Right, the weather's getting warmer. There is nothing better than spending an evening with a cocktail in your hand, and I'm joined now by someone who can pass on some tips about how to make the perfect summer gin cocktail. Jacob Wilson, you are Master Distillery at the Henley Distillery. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. But why does it feel, Jacob, like gin has just exploded in popularity in the last few years? You're not anybody unless you're making a gin.
Absolutely not. I mean, the kind of gin renaissance that we're having at the moment is absolutely amazing. Ever since the law changed in 2009, and I think a lot of people don't realise this, small craft distilleries have been able to start up, flourish and thrive in the UK. So pre-2009, it was incredibly difficult to get a licence to distill in the UK. The law had pretty much not changed for nearly 250 years. And then in 2009, someone took the government to court over the licensing and how we got those and kind of broke that barrier. Before, you had to be producing a minimum of 20,000 litres of gin, or actually producing and selling, which was a really key point, 20,000 litres of gin in your very first year to be able to be granted a licence.
So what did they change it to? Let me ask the boys. If that used to be 20,000, they took the government to court to say, can we change this legislation? How many litres do you think you had to make and sell in order to have a licence?
I think that they removed the requirement for quantity completely and just said it's about the quality of it, not the quantity.
I say 2,000.
2,000. What was it, Jacob?
1 litre.
1 litre?
So I'm correct.
You were wrong too. You were wrong too.
To be a gin producer, you have to produce gin. That's the 1 litre.
You can still produce crap gin, though. They didn't say it had to be any good.
Well, that's absolutely right. But if you think about it, in France, you need a degree in catering to open a restaurant. And so there's requirements that are different across the world.
Yeah.
A weak recovery.
Well, we'll kind of let you. But so you don't have to make good gin, though, Jacob, as long as you're making gin. Are there a lot of people who've jumped on the bandwagon and made bad gin, would you say?
I wouldn't say so.
You're very professional.
There's a big range of gins, and that's the beauty of what's happened in the last 10, 13 years, is that so many people have started distilleries ranging from small craft distilleries to bigger distilleries. The range that's on offer now, across a kind of also a range of price points, is fantastic, and customers and consumers are benefiting, as well as us as distillers. We're pushing each other to create new, better, more innovative products. And I think that's just a win all round. I don't see any losers in that situation.
Right, you're torturing me now, Jacob. You're torturing me and the boys. So tell us what you've got here and let us try some.
Perfect. So we've got, nice and easy to start with, we've got a couple of G&Ts. So we've got our Classic Dry, which this year won England's Best London Dry Gin at the World Gin Awards. We've then got our Rhubarb and Orange Gin and Tonic. We've got 2 Oriental Spiced Negronis made with our Oriental Spiced Gin. We've got a little bit fresher, longer drink. We've got our Henley Rhubarb and Ginger Collins. So that is our gin, a little bit of lemon juice, sugar, topped up with ginger ale. And then finally, you can't beat a classic martini made with our
Right, I'm going to do my best bar woman impression now. Fellas, what are you having?
I'll have the funny coloured one, please, miss.
What, the Negroni?
Yes. I'm over 18.
OK, Andre?
I think I might go for the martini. Is that all right?
Well, I
knew you were going to pick that.
I can imagine you with nothing but such a macho drink in your hand, Andre.
Look at that. Stirred, not shaken. Shaken, not stirred.
Suitable. No, I think well, you see, I quite like just a classic gin and tonic. I like the fact that we're getting it in a big glass. But do you know what? I'll try your rhubarb one, because...
that's not bad.
Suits you, Mum.
That's me in my natural habitat.
Are you having one, Jacob?
I'll go with...
You go with the normal?
Can't beat a classic.
Are you sick of gin? Like, when you make it all day, like, do you still like it?
No, never could get sick of gin. So a typical distilling day for me starts at 5 a.m, get in nice and early, fire up the stills. By 7 o'clock, they're coming over and I'm sipping on, I think, 85% ABV gin coming straight off the
None of us listening to you anymore.
The
best mate ever, really.
Am I allowed?
Right, just talk amongst yourselves. Just talk amongst yourselves.
I want to ask you a question.
I'm just going to sit here like this now.
I want to ask you a question. So you are a distiller.
Yes.
Right. What I've noticed, and you might tell me I'm completely wrong here, but what I think I've noticed is that there are a lot of people who just buy the white spirits, if you like, and then put the juniper berries in and brand their own gin. So they're not distillers. They do you see that as fakery?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, there's a number of different styles of gin. So the most commonly known is London Dry. So that is technically what we make at the Henley Distillery, barring our Rhubarb and Orange. But we make what's known as single shot gin. So we kind of take the method of London Dry and we take it one step further in terms of premium. Then you've got compound gin, which is what you're describing, where people get in a spirit and then soak the berries in. So they don't use a still.
Yes.
They're using a different method. And now there's no wrongs or rights. If people are liking what they're drinking, then that's the only really important thing.
How did you get into this?
Funny little story. I started up a little pop-up cocktail bar when I was younger for weddings, parties, things like that. I then went to university and studied 2 years of mechanical engineering when I decided to take a little bit of a gap year, rethink what I was doing, and I got a job as an assistant distiller. I realised that it was the perfect blend of my passions with cocktails and flavours, but also engineering and working with my hands.
You shifted from screws to a screwdriver.
Absolutely.
See what I did there?
And that's why you failed at stand-up comedy.
He's after my job. But I have a confession to make, because I have been to the Henley Distillery. It is a brilliant experience because when you say, you know, you set up the stills in the morning, it's hard to imagine, but they are these enormous copper... What are they? I mean, it's a still, right? What else do you call it?
So we use a really traditional method when we make our gin. So we use open flame heated copper alembic pot stills.
That's what I was looking for, copper alembic pot stills.
So our two stills, Tony and Mac, named after my two granddads, are 300 litres. So in the grand scheme of distilling, they're quite small, but they still pack a punch with producing nearly 300 bottles per batch, per still. And we've actually got 2 new ones on the way, and they may even be watching, but I haven't asked them permission yet, but they are going to be named after my 2 grandmas, Pauline and Daisy. So if they're watching, this is where they find out.
This is what makes me laugh. You've now announced it on telly, so they're forced to go along with it.
Absolutely.
He's an expert, this lad. He knows what he's doing.
Could you have a Lembit as well? I'll open it for you.
We've got a little trial still. We could
call it Lembit. I'll be there.
He can have a Lembit optic.
Yay! Very good.
That's why Phil can stand up.
But just to go back to what you were saying, Jacob, about the fact that you taste the gin at 7 o'clock in the morning. All of the gin that you make, you are literally tasting it to work out when you stop the production.
Yes.
Right?
So when we're distilling, we start off with a neutral grain spirit, which is made from wheat. We cut that down a little bit in the still with pure water, and then we add all our botanicals. So that's all of these just here. They are what are giving the gin flavour. Now, when it comes off the still, we don't use 100% of what comes off the still. We've got what's known as the heads to start with. Then we've got the hearts in the middle.
What the heads? What's that mean?
So the heads is, as the alcohol comes off the still, the first section, or the first kind of alcohol that comes off, we refer to as the heads. So traditionally, this was back in the 1700s, kind of all your nasty, higher ethanols that are going to literally start turning you blind. We're not too worried about that in terms of the quality of the alcohol that we're starting with, but we are looking for quality of flavour and quality of spirit. So my job at 7 a.m, it's a hard job, someone's got to do it, is to start tasting off the still, and that's coming off at 85%. And I'm looking for the right flavour profile.
At 7 in the morning.
At 7 in the morning.
It's not a job to come in on a hangover.
I was just going to say, have you ever done it on a hangover?
I've done it once on a hangover, and I'll never do it again.
I've got another question for you. I don't know if this is true, but somebody told me that Navy strength gin is that strength because if it mixes with gunpowder, the gunpowder will still explode.
That's exactly right. So it's sometimes known as gunpowder strength, and so that was if suddenly battle stations are called in the Navy on a ship, and suddenly you knock over your gin onto all the gunpowder. It had to still be able to light, and therefore Navy strength.
No good to have a cigarette.
So at the Henley Distillery, what you can do is, and it's a brilliant day out. Stop talking, you two. Listen.
Sorry,
it's a really lovely day out, but you can basically go along and you see all the botanicals that Jacob's got in his jars here. They have them all on the wall in these little tiny kilner jars. You've got like over 100, haven't you? And there's everything from like coffee, tarragon, pineapple, raspberry, everything. And you go along and you make your own gin to your own taste and your own flavour. I mean, I obviously thought that the gin that I made was the greatest gin that you'd ever had. Jacob took one drink and he went, coffee. I was like, oh, I did put too much coffee in. Thanks, Jacob.
What I was going to say to you, have you always been a gin drinker or are you a modern gin drinker? So I'm somebody who is a post-2009 gin drinker. I never touched it before. I actually didn't like it. And I don't want to be disrespectful, but a lot of the very commercial brands I don't think are anywhere near the quality that you get from these smaller distilleries.
From what you said, I want a Bev and tonic.
A Bev and tonic. It was excellent. But also, I mean, Jacob could produce you a bottle of Bev and tonic because you then leave with these guys your exact recipe, and it's got Bev written on the bottle,
Can you do that?
you can then order what you want. It's really fun. It's in the countryside. It is beautiful. It's a little family business. It's everything great about this country.
This is my favourite thing I've ever done on GB News, ever.
Don't tell Neil Oliver we had such fun while he was away with you.
Come on, I'm out.
He wants another one. Do you want the same again, or do you want...
No, I want the
Do you want the
Negroni? The one that Len bits that I got.
OK.
The funny coloured one.
Just tell us what's in this then, Jacob. What's in the Negroni?
So I'm a really big fan of simple cocktails you can make at home. So Negroni is a great, absolutely great cocktail to have. It's nice and simple, 3 ingredients. So for this one, we've got our Oriental Spice Gin. We've then got Campari and sweet red vermouth.
Campari?
It's even simpler. They're all equal measures. Ice, give it a good stir, nice big bit of orange peel to garnish, and
fabulous. Right, guys, we've run out of time. No. Isn't that terrible when we've got more drinks to get through off air? Thank you so much for watching. Next week, Neil Oliver will be back at 6 o'clock on Saturday. But here now on GB News, it's an hour of topical comedy with the Ministry of Offence. Good night.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive